guys. Testing, testing. One, two, three. Let me know if you can hear me loud and clear. um, yeah, I think it's supposed to be like this, but let me go this way. Yeah, better. All right. Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. This is Man Up Monday with Just Joe Brown, and of course, me, the real Dana. So guys, let me know if you can hear me loud and clear. Judge, I see you backstage. All right. Okay, you're situated because I know you was like walking around and I didn't want to bring you on camera and people seeing your house while you walking around your house. So I mean, we have a good show. Everybody is in a frenzy, honey. They're in a panic over Trump tariffs, but it's gonna be okay. He knows what he's doing. The administration knows what they're doing. Transparency. He said you're gonna feel a little pinch. And that's what is to be expected when you are doing something different, but better and healthier. Like I went to the gym today, first time at the gym, took a class, a Pilates class. It was so hard. And then you see yourself in the mirror, it's like, oh my God, I'm really out of shape. And then I had the aches and pains. This is why I am casual today. So excuse the appearance. I'm casual because I'm tired because I went to the gym. But you have to go through a little bit of pain to get the results you want. And that is the purpose of these tariffs. So we're going to talk about that. And of course, we have to talk about Carmelo Anthony out of Texas, the track athlete who is behind bars for stabbing another cheerleader. And he said it was in self-defense. And a lot of people have been wanting Judge Joe Brown take on it. So we are going to talk about it today and tomorrow on a judge's X space. So let me bring him on because I see him, honey. Why you look like that?
Just, nothing going on.
You be looking like you are not impressed.
Well, the tariff thing is interesting. The people that are squawking the loudest are responsible for exporting American industry abroad and also for exporting labor opportunities abroad. They like the cheap labor that comes from foreign markets or foreign workplaces. So they've got cheap labor. They get to sell their products for a low price if they chose to, but they don't. So they make a very heavy profit. And when they sell it to the United States, they can discount their cost and make a killing out of it. Meanwhile, our jobs drop off, industry drops off, we lose the economies of scale. And until after World War II, the United States always had tariffs. And after World War II, since Europe was destroyed, Asia was destroyed, the United States said we needed markets. So at that time, it made sense to eliminate the tariffs and encourage foreign entities to sell their products in the United States. That's how Japanese industry got started. That's how we wound up buying German and Italian cars and such like. So, and English cars, which nobody wanted before then. But now it doesn't make any sense since Europe and Asia have fully recovered and they charge almost invariably a 25% tariff on our products, and we charge nothing in return. So we need to reciprocate, charge a 25% tariff on imported products, which will probably result in diplomatic negotiations to reduce the tariffs down to zero or some limited amount. But at this point, tariffs help out the provision of industry in the United States and the development of industry.
Mhm.
When I said industry, I meant employment opportunities in industry. So hold on a second. Let me get somebody settled here.
And keep the hat on. I like the hat. I will be probably most likely bringing back my cowboy hat later this week when I do my show on Wednesday or next week. And he's talking to the dog like it's a human being. That's how I talk to my dog sometimes. Like because they're your child. They're your child. And I think sometimes they understand what you're saying to them. I really do.
There's a little drama here. There is a bird that made a nest over the door, and the bird is anyway. Let me go. Anyway, give me 30 seconds.
30 okay.
Hold on.
All right. I guess I don't know if I should. Okay. I'll just bring it back. All right. We'll wait for the judge to come back. So while he's dealing with the dog and the bird nest, my dog does the same thing, honey. I have a balcony outside of my bedroom. He goes out there and yells and barks and go crazy when he see the squirrels and the birds. He sit there and wait for the squirrels and barks at them. The squirrels pay him no mind. But yes, so it's something about squirrels and birds and that drive dogs crazy. But anyway, I want to share this clip. Oh, there you go. Oh, he's not been back yet. So I want to play this clip. And I followed him. I started following him on TikTok, and this is John Fredericks, and he broke down tariffs perfectly. And he's basically saying this is why Trump's tariffs are genius. Trump knows what he's doing. He's not incompetent. But you have a lot of scared Republicans that are acting like, oh my God, we're going to have to limit his power. Of course, the Democrats going to complain about every little thing Trump does because they have nothing else to do, right? However, they're going to try to use this as an example. They're going to try to use it as an example to win the House back and the Senate. So they are hoping and praying that Trump fails. But one thing, multiple things, but this is one of the things that I really respect about this administration. They're not listening to the noise. They're not listening to the noise of the Democrats. They're not listening to the noise of the scared GOP, some of them that are scared. They're not listening to the noise. They had a sad protest against Trump over the weekend. Barely people showed up. They're trying to find something. And the reason why Trump is seceding, right, in his February, March, April, it hasn't even been a complete 3 months. It hasn't even been a complete 90 days, right? We're not even near his 100 days yet. And it's success after success after success. And we also have breaking news to where the Supreme Court ruled in Trump's favor when it comes to importing the illegal migrants. That was breaking news tonight, and we're going to talk about that as well. Dana, there's too much rhinos. Well, yeah, because you know what? Listen, rhinos get a bad rap because they believe in bipartisan. I believe in bipartisan, and everyone should. That's why you're in Congress. However, it is the rhinos that are scared. See, it's one thing to try to work to get bipartisan bills passed, but it's another to try and throw someone under the table in your own party because you're scared. Scared money don't make no money. I experienced that myself. So Trump ain't scared because he's been through this multiple times. He have multiple failures in real life business. And here's another thing I want to implement, and I'm gonna play this clip and we'll wait for the judge to come back. I really believe that because Trump is not a politician, when he first was elected president, he never held office anywhere. He was always a businessman. And this is why the tariffs are going to work, what he's doing with the tariffs, because he is a businessman. Prior presidents were not businessmen like Trump. They were not. They were legacy babies. So they didn't know, or even if they knew, they didn't have the balls to actually execute these tariffs. And there have been old clips of other presidents, Barack Obama, talking about tariffs, but they never had enough courage to implement what Trump is doing. And the difference is you have a lifelong businessman compared to a lifelong politician, and we clearly see the difference of being the leader of this country. I want to play this clip, Judge, but did you want to say anything else?
Yeah, well, bottom line is the people that are hollering the most are the ones, like I indicated earlier, are profiteering because they've shipped the industries and the jobs overseas where the labor costs are low. We charge no tariffs against those foreign products, and they can raise the price enormously and make a hell of a profit out of it. So it's time that we impose tariffs so that the industry will be reimposed in the United States and the wage level will rise. And the interesting thing about tariffs is it's an economic reality that when you have these tariffs, it opens up job opportunities for those with lower educational levels. So you get a high school diploma and you can make a lot more money when there are tariffs than you can if you don't have the tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the fallouts is enhanced employment opportunities for those with limited educational levels.
So I want to play this clip here.
This is what I don't understand. The reciprocal tariffs going into place April 2nd, which means if you're tariffing our cars 100%, we're going to tariff your cars 100%. Well, you're already selling the cars in the United States or whatever the product may be, French wine or whatever, Grey Goose vodka like I drink, right? That comes from France. That's going to go. So what France has to do is they have to take all their tariffs off on us. So there's no change in prices. The only change is we get now an opportunity to export our manufactured goods into France and Europe and other countries because this is not a punitive tariff. This is meant to eliminate the tariffs on our goods going in. This is why these brain dead liberals and Republicans don't even understand what this means. It is so infuriating for a protectionist like me that has studied this my whole life, that understands it, to hear the dribble that's going on television. You heard it last night with Laura Ingraham badgering President Trump over this. Like, you don't have a clue, Laura. You have no understanding of what a tariff is and the purpose of it is and why it didn't raise prices the last time, and it's not going to raise prices again. What it's going to do is get our manufacturing back in. People start opening up plants over and over time. We get our sovereignty back and we create better jobs, better paying jobs, so people can actually buy the goods. Or the reciprocal tariffs are designed to eliminate tariffs. Because if you're France, let's just take an example. This is how stupid this is. If you're France and you're exporting Grey Goose vodka into the United States, I'm using that example because that's my vodka of choice when it's available. You're exporting Grey Goose and people like me are buying it and there's no tariff on it. So it's whatever it is, $35, right? We try to export Tito's American-made vodka made for potatoes. It's not my choice. I don't touch it. I like vodka made from wheat, but that's my choice. A lot of people drink Tito's, right? So the U.S. wants to, the manufacturers of Tito's, they want to export their vodka into France and European countries. Well, there's a 100% tariff on that. So it becomes price prohibitive. You're not going to pay double for Tito's in France what you could pay for Grey Goose, which to me happens to be better, but you're not going to do that. So the manufacturing doesn't happen. The Grey Goose doesn't get there. Does that make sense? Now, if you put a reciprocal tariff on there, all of a sudden, I'm not going to buy Grey Goose at $70. I buy it at $35. I'm not going to buy it at $70. I'm going to switch over to a U.S. made vodka. if they keep the tariff. So then their sales collapse. Just follow me on this. So the France sales collapse. So what is France going to do? They have two choices, right? Raise the tariff more on Tito's, which they would never do. That makes no sense. Or they'll eliminate their tariff on U.S. vodka going in there to zero, and then our tariff on French vodka, Grey Goose, would go down to zero. So it's zero now. It stays at zero. The 100% tariff on our manufactured goods exported to France, which was 100%, goes to zero. The makers of Tito's now have a new market to export their product to, which is now could be purchased by French or European buyers, which then creates more jobs making Tito's vodka. This is what they're meant to do. And the fact that these gangster bankers on Wall Street and bedwetters can't understand this, and shame on Laura Ingraham last night, who doesn't have a freaking clue about what is going on, badgering the president on this, was absolutely unbelievable.
Well, she wasn't the only one badgering the president, because you have Hakeem Jeffries doing a press conference.
He doesn't understand. He never took economics. Anyway, what it is you export the industry overseas. The wages are very low over there. And when you come back with the product that you're importing as a foreign manufactured product, you can charge the same price that people would expect to pay for it in the United States, and you make an enormous profit. If you impose tariffs, what happens is you cause the price to go back to what it would be if it used American labor and the factory were located in the United States. So that brings the industry back here, and that brings the labor source back here. So Americans make the money instead of the U.S. investor who has taken his manufacturing capacity overseas. So the people that are upset about it are the ripoff artists who see the suckers coming and they propagandize, oh my God, the tariffs are going to ruin everything. They won't. They
What is
will
that
improve
noise?
the wage level of the American worker. They will reestablish industry here. And when the product availability goes down from overseas, the incentive will be to bring the businesses back to the United States.
I'm sorry. What is that noise in the background? Whoever is there, can you just tell them to be quiet? I hear a kid. I hear more than one adult.
Putting it on mute anyway.
No, but when you're talking, you can
I've
hear
said
it.
anyway. Let me handle it anyway. Let's get.
So let me share this. I want to go to Trump's Truth Social. So on Truth Social, he has been posting about, of course, what he's doing with the tariffs.
Larry, I can tell you that there are 50, 60, maybe almost 70 countries now who have approached us. So it's going to be a busy April, May, maybe into June. And Japan is a very important military ally. They're a very important economic ally. And the U.S. has a lot of history with them. So I would expect that Japan's going to get priority, just because they came forward very quickly. But it's going to be very busy. And if President Trump, again, gave himself maximum negotiating leverage, and just when he achieved the maximum leverage, he's willing to start talking.
And it also says, this is House Republicans, Donald Trump, posted on Truth Social. Not even 100 days in, and POTUS is already delivering for American people: lower oil prices, more jobs, lower mortgage rates, cheaper eggs, no inflation, fewer illegal boarding crossings, ending taxpayer-funded waste fraud and abuse. This week, House Republicans will build on this momentum. We will advance the budget resolution, keep the process moving forward, and ultimately pass the president and Americans' people agenda.
What we're not talking about is oil was $76, now it's $65. Gasoline prices are going to plummet. Any other time, that would be the #1 story. In fact, if you go to the polls, what will get you elected as president? Much cheaper gasoline or Wall Street crying? I'm just being honest about it, right? So, yeah, people have these stocks in their 401ks, and guess what? We've been through it. There's a correction on average every year. There's a bear market every couple of years. I think most people are accustomed to that.
There'll be a few crunch moments, but bottom line is that, hey, Japan's had 78 years of freebie status when we decided to build them up as a market. Europe has had 78 years since the implication of the Marshall Plan to put them back on their feet, so they became a good market. Now it's time to say, hey, you've had enough freebie off of us. It's time for you to pay part of this cost as well. So we boosted you, cut our tariffs so you would restore yourselves with our help and make good markets. So let's have you make good markets. We've been giving you this break for entirely too long now. Enough is enough.
And the stock market, it was kind of brutal today. And Trump also posted earlier today, he says rates are plummeting, oil prices are plummeting, deregulations is happening. President Trump is not going to bend.
Well, that's what we've been pointing out this morning, and the president has been pointing it out. Rates are plummeting. Oil prices are plummeting. Deregulation is happening. You know, we've got all of these things happening. President Trump is not going to bend. He told me, a number of times that he's trying to build the economy and make it independent as opposed to relying on China for things like prescription drugs.
So I agree with him.
It's something he's going to do.
I don't know what happened. What happened? Oh, he fell off. We're gonna wait for him to come back. There he goes.
Their cost. It's time for them to pay for their load. And yeah, the market might drop, but the ones that are crying about it are the ones, as I said, have been shipping the jobs overseas, which has been costing the country. We buy steel from India instead of producing it in what used to be the steel belt. It's really pathetic what's going on. So much of what we've had has been shipped overseas to take advantage of the fact that the costs are lower over there when it comes to labor cost, manufacturing cost, energy cost, and then selling it back in the United States. And these investors are Americans as well, but the money isn't getting passed down because the money is being made overseas and it's not subject to U.S. taxation. So we get zero out of it and get ripped off. It's time for that to stop. So it is what it is. And by the way, it's a hell of a good time to buy stocks if you have the funding. Get
Right.
the prices while they're low because they'll rebound.
Right.
If you get the major companies, they're
Here's
not
the thing.
going in.
They're saying, listen, when it does rebound, let's say it's 3 months, even 6 months from now, it's going to not just rebound, but it's going to like go skyrocket. So yeah, I think people are looking short term and not long term. And long term, I would say 6 months from now, I think we're going to be independent quicker than what people, are actually thinking. They're thinking, oh, this is going to take years. I think what Trump is doing, we're going to see the results this year before the end of the year is out in the positive. You're muted.
It's not going to take that long.
Right.
Rebound will be very quick. The profits will go up. There'll be some changes in the market because of the lack of benefit to be investing in foreign manufacturing capacity. you're going to see a situation where the energy costs are going to drop. And it's also a good negotiation tool. Like, we are your best markets. You want to mess with us, okay, let's go for it. Let's see who can blink first. Who'll blink first?
I want to play this last clip of Donald Trump. This is, I guess, in the 80s, maybe early 90s, talking about tariffs.
We let Japan come in and dump everything right into our markets and everything. It's not free trade. If you ever go to Japan right now and try to sell something, forget about it, Oprah. Just forget about it. It's almost impossible. They don't have laws against it. They just make it impossible. They come over here, they sell their cars, their VCRs, they knock the hell out of our companies. And hey, I have tremendous respect for the Japanese people. I mean, you can respect somebody that's beating the hell out of you, but they are beating the hell out of this country. Kuwait, they live like kings. The poorest person in Kuwait, they live like kings. And yet they're not paying. We make it possible for them to sell their oil. Why aren't they paying us 25% of what they're making? It's a joke.
Speaking of Kuwait and such like, a lot of the Arabic countries that are oil producing do things like any guy that gets married, he can apply to the government and they give him $250,000, $260,000 as a wedding gift. Very few actually apply for it because they don't need it. My brother was in security, and he and I would check this thing out. You'd go to a high school over there, and they've got Ferraris and Lamborghinis parked out there in the lot, being driven by students. It is like, whoa, what's going on here? And they don't have any crime either. Like, if an American loses his wallet, what happens? He goes back to the hotel, and sooner than later, it'll show back up. No money missing, no credit cards missing. It'll be delivered to his hotel. Hello?
Yes. So Trump also entertained Netanyahu. So at first it was breaking news that, yes, Netanyahu did visit with Trump and he had a backdoor meeting, but Trump canceled the press conference. But apparently they did end up having a press conference. Trump did take questions, but it was more so on Iran and, of course, the tariffs. So I want to play a couple of the clips here.
You notice how difficult it was before to get anybody to sit down at the table to negotiate. See how quickly it happens now?
Right.
Amazing.
I think if the talks aren't successful with Iran, I think Iran is going to be in great danger. And I hate to say it, great danger, because they can't have a nuclear weapon.
So is that a yes?
You know, it's not a complicated formula. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. That's all there is.
So
Can't have it. Right now we have countries that have nuclear power that shouldn't have it. But I'm sure we'll be able to negotiate out of that, too, as part of this later on down the line. But Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And if the talks are successful, I actually think it'll be a very bad day for Iran if that's the case. Yeah.
By the way, what's wrong with Iran having nuclear weapons when it comes to ethics? Everybody else has them. Well, it's not in our best interest that they have them. So what goes on? Well, coercive authority. We have the power to coerce Iran in the circumstances it finds itself in right now. So we say, hey, don't like it, you're going to have to deal with the consequences. And I don't think you're going to like that. And plus, we're not like before, we'll take you out. We have the ability, and you know it. So you counted on other people forbearing on the options that they had. We won't.
Mm-hmm.
We're having direct talks with Iran. And they've started. It'll go on Saturday. We have a very big meeting, and we'll see what can happen. And I think everybody agrees that doing a deal would be preferable to doing the obvious. And the obvious is not something that I want to be involved with, or frankly, that Israel wants to be involved with if they can avoid it. So we're going to see if we can avoid it. But it's getting to be very dangerous territory. And hopefully those talks will be successful. And I think it would be in Iran's best interest if they are successful. We hope that's going to happen.
You know what?
Netanyahu's been told, hey, don't mess with this.
Right.
He ain't playing.
And I don't like him. I really don't like Netanyahu at all.
Netanyahu is interesting. He's an atheist. He advertises that. He's of the Jewish culture, but he's an atheist. So he is an acknowledged Zionist. And he's not nice when it comes to imposing the will of his country on the people that surround him. And that's caused a lot of problems that need to be ameliorated. So Trump seems to have his ear. Trump seems to have gotten a lot of attention this morning when he said there won't be a press conference. You flew all the way over here, but hey, if you're not going to make some concessions and agree to go with the flow, there it is.
Right. And Trump did propose for U.S. control of Gaza, calling it Freedom Zone. So during the meeting with Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu, President Trump referred to the Gaza Strip as an incredible piece of important real estate. He suggested that the United States could be involved in controlling and owning the area, proposing the establishment of a freedom zone after relocating Palestinians to different countries. Trump's comment have sparked a range of reaction, with some interpreting his statements as endorsing ethnic cleansing.
I wouldn't say ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing is what happened in Exodus when all of those tribes got exterminated down to the last man, woman, and child by somebody's getting back to the promised land. That's ethnic cleansing. That's what happened.
Wasn't that what Netanyahu was doing to the innocent Gaza people?
Exactly. In other words, ethnic cleansing is killing. It's not deporting. It's not relocating. It's killing.
Well, maybe it's the a sophisticated way of ethnic cleansing.
It's not a sophisticated way of
I'm trying to think of a better word. So, right,
it's relocation.
Yeah, a new term.
If you want to hear what it is, it's what happened with the Trail of Tears with that SOB Andrew Jackson when he wound up causing the death of so many Native Americans by relocating them from where they were found to reservations further out west. I had some direct ancestors that died on that so-called Trail of Tears, and I don't like the thought of it.
Right. What I was going to say, let me play this clip here.
And we're not going to stand for it.
But Mr. President, you've said, Mr. President, who's going to represent the U.S. in the talks with Iran?
Two questions. Do you expect any of these deals to be made before April 9th? And secondly, there have been some mixed messages from your administration. You're talking about negotiations, and yet others in your administration are saying that these tariffs are actually permanent. What's actually going on?
They can both be true. There can be permanent tariffs, and there can also be negotiations, because there are things that we need beyond tariffs. We need open borders. You know, we almost had a deal with China where we're going to open up China. It was almost done. Some of you remember it during my first term, and it was very disappointing. We ended up making a great deal. $50 billion worth of product was sold. $50 billion. You'd like that in Israel. And I made that deal, but it wasn't the deal that I wanted. It was the deal that I wanted was that, plus they were going to open up China so that our companies could go into China and compete with other countries and China for for a large number of people. And at the very end, that deal was terminated, and we went to a piece of the deal. And there are a lot of things outside of tariffs, but tariffs are very important. But there are a lot of things like opening up countries that were totally closed. China's essentially a closed country. In fact, it is a closed country. And what they do is they charge tariffs so that if you sell cars or if you sell anything, nobody's going to buy it because the price is out of control. But that's true with a lot of other countries also. So we're going to get fair deals and good deals with every country. And if we don't, we're going to have nothing to do with them. They're not going to be allowed to participate in the United States.
Oh, translation from Rome to recent, it's been about power, and we've had an enormous amount of power that's not been used. Well, economically, the dollar is still what is the valued currency in the world. Why is that? Because we've got Ohio-class nuclear ballistic submarines hiding under the Arctic ice caps. We've got a few LA-class attack boats, 2 Seafolk-class boats, and a bunch of Virginias coming online. And what's happening is that we hold the rest of the planet hostage. So it's time to expand that. It's like on a playground. You slap somebody around and said, okay, now you understand how things work. Do you want to deal with this or do you want to take it a little further?
Yeah.
The guy says, let's go further and bust the bully in the mouth, and he gets a bloody lip, then things stop, but nobody's going to go swing back if they feel they are overmatched. So that's the problem. We basically overmatch everybody except the People's Republic of China and Russia. So
it was a question asked during the press conference. Well, why haven't you put any tariffs on Russia? And he said, we're not doing business with Russia. So there's no tariffs for no reason for me to put tariffs on them because we're not doing business with them.
That's right. What we're doing, I can count on a lot of products that I had around the place made in Russia. We don't import them anymore.
Right.
Or allow them in.
So I want to play this clip here, just going back to the Gaza Strip when he's saying that he wanted to be a freedom zone. And he goes into what he's going to, how he's going to relocate the Palestinians.
Gaza Strip. I think it's an incredible piece of important real estate. And I think it's something that we would be involved in. But, having a peace force like the United States there, controlling and owning the Gaza Strip would be a good thing. Because right now, all it is for years and years, all I hear about is killing and Hamas and problems. And if you take the people, the Palestinians, and move them around to different countries, and you have plenty of countries that will do that, and you really have a freedom zone. You call it the freedom zone, a free zone, a zone where people aren't going to be killed every day. That's a hell of a place. It's what I call it, a great location that nobody wants to live in because they really don't. And when they have good living, real living, where Hamas and all of the problems they have, the level of death on the Gaza Strip is just incredible. And I've said it. I don't understand why Israel ever gave it up. Israel owned it. It wasn't this man, so I can say it. He wouldn't have given it up. I know him very well. There's no way. They took oceanfront property and they gave it to people for peace. How did that work out? Not good.
Is the immigration, sorry, Mr. President, is the immigration plan still on the agenda?
Which immigration?
From Gaza. From Gaza.
All it is a concept that I had that I think is good, and now people are copying it. Maybe do you want to tell? People are talking about the Trump plan. Gee, why don't we do that? Would you like to answer that question?
I think what the president talked about is, first of all, to give people a choice. Gazans were closed in, and every other place, including in arenas of battle. I mean, whether it's Ukraine or Syria or any other place, people could leave. Gaza was the only place where they locked them in. We didn't lock them in. They're locked in. And what is wrong with giving people a choice? Now, we've been talking, including over lunch, about some countries, I won't go into them right now, that are saying, if Gazans want to leave, we want to take them in. And I think this is the right thing to do. If you give, it's going to take years to rebuild Gaza. In the meantime, people can have an option. The president has a vision. Countries are responding to that vision. We're working on it. I hope we'll have good news for you.
You see how that sounds? You know what the reality is? That's not being said is, hey, if it wasn't for us, you wouldn't be there. We've financed you, provided your munitions, backed you up. Most of your Air Force or our personnel on furlough. Now, when we go in there and we talk to the press, this is going to be something you go along with because you think it's a good idea. We're not going to discuss how you came to think that way or express things that way. You might think of a Godfather situation, the old movie with Marlon Brando and Al Pacino, the Corleones. So,
But here's the thing,
like
though,
that.
is the audacity of that man Netanyahu to say, they're closed in. We didn't close them in.
That's what he's told to say. He didn't come.
I know that. I know that. And this is why I'm just saying, the whole thing is basically horseshit. Because let me just say this. And I thought about it because Trump is saying the US will control it. We're gonna own it. So that's really telling Israel all that other shit that you guys were doing, you can no longer do. You're not going to control it, and you can't beat us. So I think the other side of the coin is okay, if the US controls the Gaza Strip properties, whatever, the US can potentially control all of Israel.
Well, let's try this one. Russia and China have been pulling for years for a dual state. Israel has been trying to keep one state. The U.S. just came up with a third alternative. You keep your state and we'll control this particular troublesome strip. That ends the deal. No dual state where one of them can be subject to the control of Russia and China. And we keep Israel. Israel stays where it is, and we'll control the strip because we will create the strip, run the strip, and displace the troublesome population to those locations that we negotiate to take them. So,
I mean, I have a problem with
like old-time power politics.
Yeah, well, I totally disagree with that plan. I first of all, I don't like what happened in Gaza. I don't like the history on how Gaza became to be that little strip, and I definitely don't like the freedom zone of Gaza.
Why do
Now,
you think it became that strip?
wait, but this is where we're at today. So I don't
No,
like
why? How do you think it? See, when you start talking that, how did this come about?
it came about in many different facets. It's not just one thing.
There is one big thing that is there. The Israelis cannot afford to lose ever. If they do, they're wiped out. They'll go nuke everything if that happens. They'll play Masada. That was the fortress where the Roman legions came in and laid a short siege and quickly got control of the situation, and everybody there committed suicide in that fort. So that's what they're talking about doing. Well, since they have nukes, that might get a little nasty. So you don't want that to happen. So what goes on is you tell everybody this is what's going to happen. You can take credit for it or not, but this is the way. And now the reason you have that situation is because the Arab side, the Islamic side, was getting close to winning. They had a couple of opportunities to win. They didn't think they would be successful, and it scared the hell out of the Israelis. So things shifted, and the Israelis made some concessions to get time to rebuild, refortify, and make some arrangements so it would be harder for that to happen again. You have the Yom Kippur War. You have another thing or two going on over there Israel and Egypt signed a peace treaty under Carter because Israel could no longer risk having a militarily developed Egypt come in against it. So now you have Egypt, Israel, and the Saudis all cooperating with the United States on keeping the Russians and Chinese out and keeping everybody else at least acting semi-civilized. So it's another one of those things of power. The Romans did it 2,000 years ago, and I don't know why our people today refuse to look back in history, because what's going on right now has gotten some antecedents from antiquity that are laid out because the Romans wrote about it. And it's pretty clear what they did, which is exactly what's going on here. It's called power politics. Stalin did it when things were under the influence of the Soviet Union. So did Khrushchev. And it is what it is, but people try to be nice, nasty about it and don't want to admit it.
Yeah. All right. So,
in other words, translation, look, we can kick your behind. Would you like a sample, or do you want to take our word for it? And if you don't want to take our word for it, we will provide it in a fashion where we're just going behind the gym and nobody will see it. But when we come back, you'll be bruised and bleeding. Your head will be blooded, maybe bowed or unbowed, but you'll know it. So if we want to go there, we can go there. Meanwhile, this is what's going to happen.
all right. Well, I want to not briefly, as in short, but not too much elaborate, because you're going to be elaborating on this particular next topic, Carmelo Anthony.
The athlete down there.
So, yeah.
Well, basically.
Well, wait. Let me wait. Slow down. So, I want to give a quick backstory of it, and actually, let me share this picture here. I guess I'll go like that. Yeah. All right. So,
why'd they release this picture of the juvenile, or even give his name?
Because in Texas, 17 is considered adult if you're charged.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, oh, was that it? Was that it? No.
Can I make a quick summation?
Yeah.
All right. The way the defense might lay this out is, okay, he comes into the tent, he finds his property being taken, he gets it back, and they try to take it again from him. That's a robbery. In other words, the taking of the property of another by use of force or violence. He resisted the robbery, which is a felony, and that would morph the whole thing to killing into a felony murder situation. If you have a felony murder thing, the people who implemented the underlying felony become responsible for the consequences. For instance, if there is a proprietor, a manager, or an employee in a liquor store, and some people come in to hold up the liquor store, and there's a shootout, and one of the bullets fired by the proprietor, the manager, or an employee miscarries and kills an innocent person on the sidewalk. Well, under the felony murder thing, the employee, manager, or whatever is not charged with the homicide. The people who are charged with the homicide are the ones that started the robbery. So in this case, you have a party that starts a robbery. 2, allegedly, you have a killing that results by the would-be victim of the robbery. So what happens is, under the felony murder theory, the person that's charged with the homicide and the robbery is the survivor. In this case, one of the would-be, should-be co-defendants to the robbery, if that's the way the case is cast. The whole thing about the $1 million bond is absolutely ridiculous, because under the Fifth Amendment, bonds shall be reasonable, and reasonable has been interpreted for the last 230 years by the U.S. Supreme Court and most appellate courts as meaning simply enough to ensure that a person shows up until the charges are disposed of. No more, no less, but there is a trend that the liberal side has set up to punish people who are charged. And under American law, you're presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. An indictment or a charge is presumed under American law to be an accusation only, and a mistaken one. So there you go. What you have is a DA's office that seems to have relied upon some political pressure so that the elected DA is returned to his job, his stable job, which in today's market, when it comes to lawyers, is a rare thing, because few lawyers actually can earn a decent living when they practice law. Some do because they work for large firms, and large firms act on volume and reputation, even if they don't deliver a damn thing. So we have the games that are played with that.
Let me give a little bit of background here. So it said the incident happened 10 a.m. Wednesday, April 2nd, during a track meet at the Kukendall Stadium. The Frisco Police Department said an altercation between two students identified as McCaff and Anthony resulted in Anthony stabbing McCaff in the chest. Police said by the time officers arrived at the scene, McCaff was unconscious and not breathing.
Yeah.
So the athletic trainers there performed CPR. McCaff was transported to a hospital. He was pronounced dead. Witnesses told police that Austin McCaff and Carmelo Anthony did not know each other. One witness said they were with McCaff under their school tent during the track meet when someone they didn't know, identified as Anthony, came over to them. The witness said McCaff told Anthony to leave. Anthony allegedly grabbed his bag, opened it, and reached inside. Touch me and see what happens. A witness said McCaff touched Anthony, and another witness said McCaff grabbed Anthony. Police said that that's when Anthony pulled out the knife, stabbed McCaff once in the chest, and ran away. And then once the arresting officer said, "I have the alleged suspect in custody," Anthony reportedly told the officer, "I'm not alleged. I did it." Anthony then said that McCaff put his hands on me after he asked him not to. After Anthony was placed inside the police vehicle, he asked an officer if McCaff was going to be okay and if what happened could be considered self-defense. Now, attorneys, Anthony
Stop right there a second. He went wrong. He ran his mouth off too much. He had the witnesses going for him. But if he did that, then what happens is he just quasi removed his defense, because self-defense says you can't escalate the force used unless there is disparate strength between the person who is attacked and the person who is the attacker. In other words, a little old lady could potentially use some deadly force to stop a real strong young guy from doing her in. But two young, strong guys are not supposed to escalate physical force where it is of non-lethal violence into using a weapon and becoming lethal violence. See, he shot his mouth off. He was doing good, and then he opened his mouth. So now he gave them some cause to say, okay, this is a homicide where the situation was escalated. He's an athlete. Why didn't he just respond with physical force? And if the assailant escalated it beyond what was an exchange of physical force, unarmed physical force, then he could escalate to match it.
So you saying
In other words, two guys are having a fist fight and one of them pulls out a gun and shoots the other. That's going to be a murder case because the violence got escalated to another level that was uncalled for.
Mhm.
If one guy pulls out a gun, the other guy pulls out a gun and shoots him, fine. If it's a felony murder, like I was describing, okay. But he ran his mouth off and said, I did it. And he got me scared because he went in. That's not an excuse.
He shouldn't have said nothing, but
Should have
again,
kept his mouth shut. So,
but
yeah.
was that, can that be used against him?
Yeah, it can. Anything you say can and may be used in evidence against you. The Fifth Amendment. You have a right to remain silent. You have a right to consult with an attorney. You have no obligation to make a statement, but if you do, anything you say can and may be used against you.
Well, so Carmelo Anthony, he remains in police custody on a $1 million bond.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Can you hear me? You can't hear me? I'm sorry. Can you guys in the chat, can you hear me and can you hear the judge? Say yes if you could hear both of us. Oh, just go out and come back in. Judge, you might as well just go out and come back in. Just give him it looked like somebody called him because I looked back here on the screen and it went black. So that means somebody called him. And they know he's doing the show. So I don't know why I don't know why people do that, but it's always a bitch that do shit like that to be funny. And I hate to say that, but and I'm a really nice person, but it takes so much like especially when I know when someone is being funny. I can't stand that shit. All right, here you go.
Yeah. How many times have you heard this on television? You have a right to remain silent, but it doesn't seem to settle in with a lot of people, even those who ought to know better. Fannie Willis, district attorney for Fulton County / Atlanta, Georgia, was ignorant enough to fail to take into consideration when she didn't have to testify, I'm going to take the stand. And got up there and implicated herself, a whole lot of other people.
Well, I think the difference there is she's a DA lawyer. This is 17-year-old kid.
Yeah, well, they used to. I mean, I didn't learn this in law school. I learned this in the 5th grade. I was 10 years old. I mean, what happened to the retards? They look at all of these motion pictures. You have a right to remain silent. All of these things where the gangsters and thugs get rousted by the police, you have a right to remain silent. The Miranda rights. This isn't anything new. This is from 1962. How long is that? That is 63 years ago. Granddad, great granddad, dad, mom, great granny, granny, and ignorant fool that doesn't pay any attention to the world is trying to shoot his mouth off and talk his way out. See, most crimes aren't solved like they say in the movies. Somebody ran their big mouth off and told somebody. I've got 6 defendants in front of me on a homicide case. You know how they caught them?
How?
It was a drive-by. 6 people, 5 people got shot. 3 died. You know how they caught them? The damn fools went to Kinko and did 250 copies of the news article and autographed them on the back saying, we did it, and passed them out to friends, associates, and people they were trying to brag to. That's how stupid they get. 97+% of all people in American penitentiaries pled guilty. Just a little more than 2% got found guilty by a jury. Out of that 97+%. The truth of the matter is 84 to 87% confessed.
So, okay, so getting back to Carmelo Anthony, his lawyer, he in a statement released Monday by the family's attorney, they expressed sadness that a life was lost, and they did give their condolences to the Metcalf family. This will certainly be a long road ahead. And during this challenging time, we ask for prayers for both families, and we ask for your patience and respect for the legal process as we seek the truth. Defense attorneys Billy Clark and Kim Cole said they are committed to making sure Anthony is given a fair trial and are seeking a reduction of Anthony's excessive $1 million bond. He is charged with first-degree murder. Now,
That's not first-degree murder either. That's a crime of passion. They're going to say the intent can be formed in an instant. Yeah, but that's not it. They're overcharging. This is a second-degree of voluntary manslaughter situation. Now, I say this, youth are stupid, incredibly stupid. I say that from the perspective of having gotten the youngest person in the whole world on a death row off 23 minutes before they were going to execute him. When he was 15 years, 2 weeks old, I got a stay of execution from the governor of Arkansas and from the Arkansas Supreme Court at the same time. The defendant that I was representing was accused of killing 3 people when he was in the 7th grade. The interesting thing about it is one of the grounds I got to get a unanimous reversal of the conviction was that they had an all-white jury. There were some other things that went on in there that too many people were afraid to bring up, but I did, and I filed a 12,482-page hardbound printed book of a brief where we detailed capital punishment. And if you want to hear an atrocity, the youngest person executed in the United States in the 20th century was executed in 1934. It was a 10-year-old girl for stealing allegedly 14 cents from a 5 and dime store. She was tried before a jury as an adult on Monday and hung on Wednesday. That was in Arkansas.
Well, there is a fundraiser, and so far, they were able to raise $200,000 for Carmelo Anthony. I guess his
quite sufficient for a defense. The charges that they are levying upon clients today are absolutely ridiculous. And I hope it's a good lawyer, because generally a public defender's office has more resources and a better trained staff than most private attorneys. And most private attorneys who get involved in things like this do it kind of as a gratuitous thing because they get notoriety, and that'll build up their client base and they'll make more money.
So I wanted to ask you
Doing
this.
the right thing. When I got this young person, the youngest in the world, off death row, I did not charge him a dime. I did it pro bono and put up 50 grand of my own money. That was to pay for the transcripts and stuff.
And yeah, you know what? You don't see a lot of that. If
Not
really,
because they have forgotten that this damn thing is a profession and they've turned it into a business. And lawyers owe back, because of the expertise, training, and education. They owe the public because they are the gatekeepers that keep the system honest. They are the ones that make America work. They make the rules. They have the rules, see to it that the rules are applied. And when somebody gets out of order here with this, they do what is necessary to make sure that if somebody is in fact convicted, due process of law transpired, so you don't get lawfare in disregard for the Bill of Rights and things that would make the United States a totalitarian mess, instead of a republic that has rules where it is a nation of law, not of men. In other words, the laws control, not the whims of the people that administer things, or at least it's supposed to, as nearly as possible.
So I want to ask you this question, boys to men, right? What is going on? What do you think is going on in the high schools with the kids nowadays?
They're,
Huh?
they're punks. They don't duke it out, bam, bam, bam. They don't take out bullies. And the bullies are sissies. They like to pop caps on people instead of going toe to toe. And see, oh my God, we have to protect the children from bullying, and it's up to the teachers and the police and the parents. No, it's not. It's never been in human history. It's up to the kids. It's a rite of passage. So we don't encourage our kids to take on bullies. They get protected. They feel entitled, and they have a whole lot of punks that get real scared and they pull knives out and stab somebody instead of busting them right in the mouth. We forgot, and it's not a racial thing either. White, black, brown, red, yellow. You remember Back to the Future, where McFly goes back in time and he runs into his dad when dad is in high school, and dad has been bullied since that time until McFly's presence by Biff, and he causes dad to stand up. Boom, dad knocks Biff out because he gets in a good blow right to his chin. And when McFly gets back to the present, guess what? Biff works for dad, and Biff is dad's flunky because dad stood up to the bully. We don't teach that anymore.
Well, here's the thing. This situation is a tragedy all the way around. A young man, a young man lost his life, and another young man whose life is going to be devastated, is going to be completely changed and not for the good. They're both was on track to going to college on scholarships, and they were both good students, and tragic, tragic, tragedy
Happens
happened.
all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's life is life, but I'm just saying when
I mean, I handled
this is what
1/10.
made national news, but I'm pretty sure this is not the first incident. But
This isn't. It isn't. I'm
is not,
sorry for
so
interrupting.
I think
Go
so.
ahead.
What I'm trying to say here is that it's too much of a trend. We have to stop this trend of this type of violence. So it's one thing to fight, with your fists, right? Because that's never going to change as far as bullying and fighting, and you don't like this person, I don't like that person. But when it gets to whether it's guns or knives, or when it gets to that, like, it's too much of a trend, and that is what needs to change.
They're
So
sissies. They don't know how to stand toe to toe. Young man, you're applying to the court for probation or relief from service of the full extent of the sentence that you have agreed to pursuant to the arrangement that your lawyer has negotiated with the state. Would you please answer the court and advise it or tell it why you did this? And they
so
get off into it, and you say, well, why didn't you stand up and go toe to toe and have a fist fight? Yo, Yana, I'm too pretty. I'll rely on the ladies take care of me. I can't have no scars on my face.
So here's the thing though, because now, a lot of people are saying that for why is the bell high? It shouldn't be that high.
Bell shouldn't be that.
Also, George Zimmerman, you have the Daniel Penny, well, Daniel Penny was arrested, but then he was released, I think, out on bail. George Zimmerman,
You
he
mean?
was released on bail as well. So
Yeah.
they were all
I mean,
arrested. They were
for a
arrested. Yeah.
manslaughter case, I mean, you don't set $1 million bail on it. That's a new thing. That just gets absolutely obscene. And it becomes pretrial punishment when a person hasn't had benefit of due
No, but the question I want to ask, when you look at Kyle Rittenhouse, George Zimmerman, Daniel Penny,
Rittenhouse should never have been
let me
charged.
ask the question. They
Yeah.
were all arrested, right? And then they were bailed out.
Yeah,
Yes, correct.
essentially.
No. I'm just saying they were arrested, they were hit with a bail, and then they bonded out.
A reasonable bail. In other words, what's going to assure that this person show up for the remainder of the proceedings? That's all that's
Right.
necessary.
It's just that the difference with this one, yeah, like you said, it's too high, and they try to punish you with these high bells. But what it shouldn't be that high.
The DA is playing politics. He wants to get reelected to his cushy job.
And you're going to use this?
Yeah, he is. He wants.
First of all, and then honestly, it's bad. It's getting bad press, but this kid has no prior. So yeah,
I know it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well,
it's absolutely ridiculous. That's like what they did with Diddy, and whether or not he did anything, the sentence he could get is not worth a $50 million bond with 5 sets of insurances that he would show up. He was in an island that did not have, on an island that did not have an extradition agreement with the United States government. He negotiated a time to surrender. He came to New York, got a place to live there to handle the case, negotiated a time to come in and surrender himself. They caught him in a mall and arrested him on surprise. And instead of having the FBI as the prosecutorial entity, they did it with Homeland Security so they could claim he was a national threat and get him held incommunicado. That's what they're doing, and that's what you call lawfare now. Now, the case doesn't carry that much time. I represented a lot of people in federal court charged with the same 3 counts of indictment that Diddy is charged with, and most of the time they were just pimps who had some whore that he brought in from south of the border or someplace else. And he would bring her from West Memphis, Arkansas to Memphis, Tennessee, and they'd hit him with the Mann Act. The Mann Act was created back before World War I to get Jack Johnson because he had a white wife, and a lot of people objected to him traveling around with her and her friend girls as part of his entourage. So they set up the Mann Act. And by the way, that's what they got R. Kelly on, and that's what they have Diddy charged with is the Mann Act.
I want to give an update on Diddy.
And what you know what sentence Jack Johnson got when he got convicted of the Mann Act?
What?
1 year. But he got 5 years because he escaped and went to France, and he tried to sneak back in because his mama wanted to see him. I think that was done.
I want to give an update on Diddy. I want to give an update on.
So $50 million for 1 year.
Can you hear me?
What? Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm trying to say something.
Go. I didn't hear you. Go ahead.
I want to give an update on Diddy. Cassie, the ex-girlfriend, she is scheduled to testify in Diddy's upcoming trial, which starts May the 5th. So she's set to testify under her real name in the sex trafficking trial scheduled for May 5th in the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York. Federal prosecutors have filed a motion indicating that while Cassie will testify publicly, 3 other alleged victims have requested to remain anonymous during the trial. The prosecution has prepared 4 witnesses for the trial, with Cassie being identified as victim 1 in the alleged documents. So his trial starts May the 5th.
Yeah. That's one where I'd be interested to see who happens to be on the recordations of the events over the last 15 years. What I think Diddy was doing was giving himself, I'm not approving of what he did, but Hollywood's a bunch of freaks anyway, and the American public goes along with the freaks to set the tone.
But here's the thing.
What everybody in Hollywood does is they blackmail each other or have information incriminating on each other so nobody can sit there and get the jump or the advantage. And I think that's what he probably was doing. But then you have...
well, it says here that the alleged 3 victims that's going to be testifying under a pseudo. Meanwhile, 4 judges have said plaintiffs can't proceed anonymously in their lawsuits. I think that's...
I know. So the bottom line is if you're trying to get civil damages, you have to be known, but somebody you're trying to get put in the penitentiary, you get to hide. I don't buy that.
Yeah, so, and it says he's also hit with 5 federal charges dealing with sex trafficking and
They had
racketeering.
additional counts on the 3 that they charged him with.
Yeah, it says Diddy now faces 5 federal charges,
Okay, they added 2 more.
including sex trafficking and racketeering. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you, but apparently we've got a delay going here.
There's no delay.
Now I'm talking about what you're saying apparently is not coming through to me when you say it. I'm looking at your mouth move, but I'm not hearing anything for a minute.
Hold on for a second. Hold on. I don't have a delay when I'm talking.
Well, not to you, but
All right.
yeah. Anyway, excuse me, but it's like, see, $50 million for a bond, and he's not going to, if he got the maximum under the sentencing guidelines, it wouldn't be commensurate with a $50 million bond that was not accepted as adequate.
Mhm. Okay.
In
Well,
other words, what I'm saying is the person they designed the entire Mann Act to go after, the first person ever charged with it, heavyweight champion Jack Johnson, got 1 year for being convicted. And that's when they had no sentencing guidelines. And that was back in the old racist South for something that happened before World War I, more than 100 years ago, 110 or 12. Now,
wait. So, all right. Because you're going on and on about Jack Johnson, and we've been over that
I'm just
before.
saying it's an example of what's happening because Diddy is charged with the exact same charges that Jack Johnson was charged with before World War I.
Okay. So, I need everybody to hit the like button, and I'm looking at the likes, and I only have 650 likes. So, I need everyone to hit the like button. I want to acknowledge a couple of super chats. Thank you so much, Walter, for the $20 super chat, and thank you so much, Ira. Trump is faking Trump is pump faking about Iran if he attacks Iran. That is a conflict of interest for Russia. Xi already pulled Trump's whole card on Taiwan.
That's going nowhere. That is not how this works. The main thing with Taiwan is China says they're going to take it starting 2027. They'll be ready. And the U.S. has got itself in a bad position giving away munitions to Ukraine and Israel. And it's frankly run out of the heavy artillery ammunition that it needs. And it has been neglecting the Marine Corps for decades, and they don't really have adequate transportation to get to where they need. And you certainly can't move large army divisions, nor the heavy equipment that they need in time to do anything about it. And Taiwan is about 180 to 190 to 200 seconds from the nearest set of airfields in mainland China. So count to 120 and you can get a modern attack aircraft from the takeoff bases in mainland China in that 220 counts that you count. And that's not good for anybody trying to resist them, especially since we're short on aircraft carriers. And China has come up with some standoff missiles that might make it prudent for the U.S. Navy to stay at a distance other than with Arleigh Burke destroyers, which are kind of old and decrepit because they are a 1970 design that they started making in 1982, which is 43 years ago. So we haven't advanced in because we've been shortchanging the Department of Defense. So we're going to pay for it. So we need diplomacy to get ourselves out of this mess.
All right. So this came in breaking news today. And guys, please hit the like button. We have 1,000 people and I'm in over 700 likes. So I want to get to 1,000 likes, 1,000 people. So please hit the like button. Thank you. Supreme Court requires non-citizens to challenge detention and removal in Texas, right? So, well, I think this one is better. Supreme Court clears way for Venezuelan deportation to resume for, well, this says for now, of course, because it's the New York Times. So Trump got a win today because
because nobody challenged him, was standing to challenge him.
So the Supreme Court on Monday lifted a pair of orders by a federal judge in Washington, D.C. that had barred the government from removing non-citizens who are designated as members of the Venezuelan gang under a March 15th executive order issued by President Trump. By a vote 5-4, the justices declined to address the challengers' contention that they are not covered by the 18th century law on which Trump relied in issuing the order. Instead, the challengers' lawsuit must be brought in Texas, where they are being held, rather than in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
The unsigned 4-page opinion emphasized that although courts have a limited role in reviewing claims under the law, the plaintiffs and other detained under the law are entitled to notice and opportunity to challenge their removal. Justice Sotomayor penned a 17-page dissent, joined in by Justices Kagan and Jackson, and in part by Justice Amy Barrett. She contended that her colleague's decision to intervene in this litigation is as inexplicable as it is dangerous.
Well, here's what the thing is. That's okay. Back to Diddy again. What happened relative to those charges that gave a federal district court in New York the jurisdiction for things that they raided his mansions in Florida and California for? See, in other words, this is something that needs to be cleaned up where the feds can cherry pick which jurisdiction they want to go after somebody in. That's wrong. The other thing is that if this had been a habeas corpus and each person had been named individually, that's one thing. But in criminal law, you just can't have a third party come in and say, we are going to represent all of these people and it's wrong to let go. The defendant has to respond and raise the claim. That's not what happened. We don't have a bunch of gang members who raised the claim. We are in the individual or specified group. We have some people that intervened way outside, 1,500 miles away in New York, and said, or on the East Coast, and said they shouldn't be allowed to take these people out. Well, since it's a criminal matter, in essence, where they broke the law to get in to the border, and through the border, they got caught by what they call an elastic border. It's like it's made like a rubber band. Just because you cross the line doesn't mean that you cross the border, because that rubber band stretches and it can snap back and bring you back. And the issue is, how'd you get in here? And if you're undocumented, you have no business being here. So rather than go through charging you with a crime, we just send you back where you came from. That doesn't require all of this. You see, I think Bondi made a mistake by characterizing these folk as dangerous and they're criminals, where when you accuse somebody of criminality, you've got to prove it. And when you have something to prove, then due process of law applies. All you had to do is say they were trying to break the border. We caught them. We rounded them up. And they aren't American citizens. They have no legitimate reason to be here. So all we have to do is show the probable cause that they are here illegally and we get to boot them back to where they came from. That would have been the end of it, but no, they had to go elaborate for PR purposes and say, hey,
I don't know what happened. Well, I do know what happened. But see. Let me see. No, you guys could hear me. You can hear me, right? You guys can hear me. I don't know what happened with the judge. Dana, you so cute. No, you guys can hear me. Okay, yeah, so you can hear me. I don't know what happened. Can you tell her stop calling you? Yeah, go out and come back in. And I think people think it's going to aggravate me, and it doesn't aggravate me. What it shows, what it does show is the lack of respect that they have for him. See, y'all don't affect me, but it shows the lack of respect that they have for him. Like, yo, I'm very nice, but I'm not nice. Yeah.
boy. Anyway, points made. Um,
All right. So getting back to the Supreme Court, he got a win when it comes to the illegals. And the Supreme Court sided with him.
yeah, it's inevitable. If you apply the law like I have for a very long time, the conclusion is inescapable. And I'm surprised that even there was a four members of the opposition. I don't see what basis they could have had. It's like, what standing did the people have to bring the action in the first place? One. Two, why did they bring it where they did instead of the location where this occurred? And three, why is it they don't have a single one of the people who was impacted actually filed some kind of complaint demanding due process of law? It's something that goes to an individual when there's a criminal charge. Now, on a habeas corpus, that means somebody's held in detention. These people aren't or weren't being held in detention. They were being deported, not for violations, but because they weren't supposed to be here. So they had no standing. As soon as they established probable cause that these people were not here with a legal claim of a lawful passage into the country. So the decision was inevitable. In other words, hey, not now.
All right. So one last thing. I want to move to Mayor Eric Adams, right? Because he is running for re-election for mayor of New York. However, honey, he is running as an independent. He has left the Democrat Party.
Don't blame him. They're pieces of crap.
And so I want to,
Piles of excrement.
yeah. So he's running as an independent, and I hope he gets reelected. And it's probably somebody already running as a Republican or whatever. But I think the Independent Party works for him. So I want to play this clip here because he talks about the Biden DOJ and the dirtiness that they were doing towards him and others when Biden was president.
Because what Biden's Justice Department did was unbelievable. You placed mothers on FBI watch lists because you are worried about what they're being taught to children in school.
Wait, what is that?
Yeah, they had mothers and families placed on FBI watch lists, terrorist watch lists, because of their advocacy around some of the things that they're teaching their children in school. They wanted to acknowledge, they call them terrorists. I'm telling you, you got to see what that Justice Department did. And a lot of people want to ignore what they talk about my case.
Yeah.
But when Biden pardoned his son, he said, the Justice Department has been politicized.
Yeah. That was
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
We're not like staunch Biden people.
Right. It's like, it is a tricky thing because, I'm pardoning my kid 100% if I have that power. But at the same time, I understand the frustration that
1,000%.
you must absolutely feel. Okay, so.
And we're not hearing
the same criticism.
No one from the Justice Department quit. None of them saying, I think what you're doing is wrong, so I'm quitting.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, read Cash's book.
This is the thing that I think is really frustrating, is that we know your name, we know Biden's name, we know Hunter's name, we know Trump's name. These people that you were talking about or Cash was talking about, none of us know their names.
You know the name in the books.
Okay, I'm going to look because how can we hold people accountable that were not elected by us, not democratically chosen, and are the ones allegedly behind these decisions? But how can we hold them accountable if we don't know who the fuck they are?
Right.
And why aren't you telling me? You know the names. Are you scared?
No, when you read,
Dyslexia, baby.
No, when you read the book, I don't remember all the names as they listed. He did a good job of documenting some of the case history, of documenting. So I can't blurt out every name when I remember.
Yeah.
But it's all in the book. He does an amazing job of documenting the case history. Like you look at the
which case?
Oh, cases. There's a couple of cases.
Got it.
Like he goes into what was happening in the Justice Department under the previous administration, and how the number of people who were under investigation was just political people. The book is a good book.
Do you get a nudge, when you start speaking out?
Yes.
Do you get a private phone call from somebody or an email that goes, hey, why don't we go a different direction about this? It might not be good for you politically. Does that happen?
What people told me when I criticized what was happening to our city around the migrants and asylum seekers, they said, Eric, they got many ways to come at you.
Really?
Right.
And is this is this commonplace within politics? Did you experience this as borough president when you had strong opinions? Were you like, hey, if you go against the administration, for the mayoral administration, they might come down on you? Is this just how politics works, or is this something specific to federal government and control?
I think it's a combination of, people weaponize their authority in every business.
Yeah.
It's not just unique to politics. It becomes more costly when you're using prosecutors as a weapon against political opponents. I'm facing 35 years in jail.
No.
Wow.
Think about it.
I didn't know.
For some upgrades? For some upgrades?
Think about it. And it cost me over $3 million.
Personally.
Right.
Hold on. So
think about this for a moment. You know what I'm saying? So this is real shit, man.
So these people would 100% be totally fine with you being behind your bars for 35 years, completely broke, just so that they could send a message to other states not to push back?
Make an example.
Read Cash's book.
Wow.
Okay, let me state the obvious. What was he before he became mayor of New York?
Police officer.
How do you get $3 million in your bank account and your whole career you've been a cop before you get elected to part of a term as mayor?
Well, I don't know if he has 3 million. He just said it's costing him 3 million.
And so that means, well, the lawyers they have these days aren't going to take the case if the guy doesn't have the money. He said it cost him, or is it supposed to be, it's $3 million that's the bill, and somebody's going to raise this money for me.
Unless he was the person, the police officer that's in charge of the union, like the top
Yeah,
person.
but that they don't pay them that kind of money. Right. So I used to represent some.
Could he have become a millionaire being mayor?
No, because how much do they pay the mayor?
Well, maybe half.
In other words, you've got no business becoming a mayor off of a public salary. Unless you have insider trading information, which isn't.
You have no business becoming a millionaire.
Yeah. Now, other point here too. Well, it's.
What?
See.
You forgot your point.
No, I didn't forget my point. I'm just trying to be very brief without having a convoluted explanation. It's the Bill of Rights. The reason that they put the Bill of Rights in, they came up with them, the first 10 amendments, and they were ratified 1791, and the Constitution was ratified 1789. Why the 2-year gap? Because the people that ratified the original Constitution became concerned that the power of the federal government could be used to persecute people for political purposes. The entire Bill of Rights is designed to, one, ensure that you could not silence someone so that there would be the maintenance of free speech, so there would be free discussion, free flow of information, so that the people who voted would be knowledgeable when they cast their votes. 2, you had the right to be armed, so the public would always be an offset to federal power. Remember, at this time, we had no standing army. Remember, at this time, police had not yet been invented. And the next thing, number 3, in the Bill of Rights has never been exercised because it's got to do with quartering soldiers in private homes during time of peace. All right, we've never had a case on that. Amendment 4 has got to do with sanctity from inappropriate searches and seizures. In other words, you need probable cause sufficient to convince a disinterested, independent person that criminal activity is occurring and that some kind of illicit material is present that needs to be seized. 5th Amendment, the right to remain silent. All right. 6th Amendment, the right to have a trial before a jury. And if you have an appeal from a trial based on the common law, to have that law applied upon appeal. And you keep going with these protections to make sure that a government is not able to use its authority and power for political purposes or for repression. Now, you have this administration, not this one, but the past administration and the Obama administration, who seem to have never taken civics, social studies, U.S. government, or anything to do with constitutional law, and treating the Bill of Rights like it's just trash. You heard Kamala Harris say, along with Tim Walz, Tampon Tim, and Hyena Harris, they were talking about the First Amendment needed to be revisited because speech was getting too dangerous. You know, they were trying to get the Second Amendment abolished. The Third Amendment has never counted since there's never been an application of it in the history of the country. The Fourth Amendment, Kamala Harris was saying, we're coming into your place to see what you're doing. We don't care what you think your rights are. The Fifth Amendment, we know that the due process part was just thrown out the window. Look what happened with this case we're talking about with the Mayor Adams. Look at what happened with President Trump. Look at what happened with Dr. Johnson, we just interviewed recently. You see, look what Fannie Willis is doing down there in Fulton County, Georgia. And she stupidly threw it out the window. The elected district attorney for one of the largest cities in America, she seemed to have been ignorant of what the Fifth Amendment was about because they don't care, don't know, and they are anxious to violate it when it suits them. Now, see, this is what this is all about. We have these rules, and you just can't come in America and say, you know, we don't like the rules because they keep us from doing what we're doing. It's an Animal Farm thing. That's Orwell's Animal Farm, where the animals wrote a constitution on the side of the barn. It says all animals are equal. And then when you had the pigs who came in and pulled off a coup with the help of these dogs, what wound up happening is they changed it. All animals are equal, but pigs are more equal than others. So apparently some people are more equal than others in the United States in the view of the Democratic Party and others who don't get the Bill of Rights. So these things don't apply to them and they can use them at their whim to oppress and suppress.
Speaking of the Bill of Rights, I want to share this because I think what this particular man said was so idiotic. And I'm not sure exactly. I know he goes on like these news talk show hosts or whatever. I think he's some type of college educator. I don't know, but he's an idiot. Ellie Mystall or whatever. So he was saying that the Constitution needed Africa. Did you hear that?
Yeah, where has this fool been? They have all kinds of violations. See, this is one of those stupid little points that the woke folk jump on. Oh my God, he's so right. Yeah, but what about all these illegals they were trafficking into the country so that they could come up and with no voter registration, anybody could vote? No. You don't want everybody voting. It's bad enough since they've got universal suffrage. You have too many ignorant and stupid people that do not spend enough time apprising themselves of what the issues are, forget the facts, and they respond to a bunch of idiots out in front of a polling place doing a line dance, or what was it a few years ago? Take your booties to the poll.
Well, great show. I see another super chat, couple of super chats. Thank you. Todd says, Judge Brown, if the judge wanting to keep these Venezuelans gang members is buddies with Justin Roberts, shouldn't he recuse himself?
He might, but that's not what the issue is. I don't support what he did. I think it's wrong, but it's called error. You cannot impeach or remove a judge or somebody on a court of appeals, a justice, for error. That's why they have appellate courts to reverse error that is harmful. Now, I will call attention to this. couple of years ago, some of us who were strongly supportive of the Second Amendment became very offended when the Biden administration, with the contrivance of ATF, started changing the law on pistols with braces. Braces were something that constitute a fairly recent invention, and the intention was to take all of these people with disabilities, particularly vets, and give them some way to stabilize a firearm so they could exercise their Second Amendment right. Well, after saying that these firearms, which were stabilized with these braces, were okay for years, the Biden administration flipped the script with their ATF and they said they're illegal, so you either have to destroy them or we confiscate them. So people offended by this, specific individuals, specific plaintiffs, that is, backed up by the NRA and other organizations that are there to protect the Second Amendment, they went into court and they got judges on circuit courts, specifically in Texas, to enjoin the Biden administration and the ATF. Now, what's happened since then is the Trump administration has taken these cases that the Biden administration appealed and said, we're dismissing the government's appeal. So we applauded these district court trial judges for enjoining the Biden administration and ATF from violating the Constitution. Well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So that authority exists, and sometimes you may have a liberal judge who exercises it appropriately, and that becomes error, but we should not be talking about he needs to be impeached because he dared to do it. The case that sets this whole thing in play is called Marbury versus Madison from 1803, which is 222 years ago. It stands for the principle that a court with appropriate jurisdiction may declare some act of another governmental entity unconstitutional and inappropriate and invalid. Now, we have what we call Article 3 judges. The only court that's set up by the Constitution of the United States is the Supreme Court of the United States. Under Article 3, Congress is given the authority and the power to authorize and fund and establish inferior courts that lead up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court won't hear every case that wants to get itself in front. They have to apply for and file a petition for a writ of certiorari. In other words, a certification that the issue that is raised by the matter on appeal is important enough for the U.S. Supreme Court to consider it. If they do, they issue the writ of certiorari and they hear the case. So what happens is the many cases are vetted until only the most important ones that decide crucial aspects of the law that are in dispute, and in the 10 appellate circuits that we have, are not resolved the same way. So we devolve this onto the Supreme Court to make the final decision. Now, there is no stipulation in the Constitution as to how many members are supposed to be on the Supreme Court. That's up to Congress. There was talk of increasing the number of members of the Supreme Court so that Biden administration policies could get favor. But we have tried in our history more than 9. It proved to be unwieldy, and they went back to 9, and that's been going on basically for the 200, and let's see, how long has it been? 36 years since the nation has existed, because it works. Anything less is not really good, and anything more is not good either. We've had the experience. So as the first case This is one more thing. First case decided by the U.S. Supreme Court is this. What is the common law? The Supreme Court held unanimously that all law in the United States is common law until it is superseded by legislative action. What is the common law? That body of judge-made law based on tradition, precedent, and the evolving conditions of society. So we have a 236-year-old precedent that some people want to throw out of the window. And that's not the way to do it. Conditions have evolved, which, by the way, some people on the far right are very wrong about it because they say the Constitution is supposed to be stagnant. But the very first case, which cited a 1661 English case before,
you cover your coat. Can you
now,
pull that coat over?
Now,
stop playing with me.
Back to the case at hand. What we have is precedent, a long ancient precedent.
Judge,
we have some
we gotta start wrapping it up.
And we need to stick with them because we cannot have the improvident situation of people get to change the law to push their particular agendas. It doesn't work that way, not in this country.
All right, we gotta know. This is the last super chat. Mayor Adams raised funding through a donation campaign, helping him pay his legal fees.
Well, good, but it didn't cost him $3 million.
But maybe that's how much he raised. I don't know.
He says he raised it, or did it cost him? I don't say it cost you when somebody else is paying the tab. I went to dinner and we went to Ruth Chris and it cost me $380. No, but your girlfriend paid the tab. So what did it cost you? Let's be clear about it.
Thank you too, Etai. He said, thank you, Judge. I could listen to you for days. Well, unfortunately, I don't have days to sit up here and record with him. He act like he doesn't either. However, guys, listen, thank you guys for tuning in. Great show tonight. Thank you, Judge. And the Judge will be on X Tuesday night, correct?
To Mary.
Right. And so you're going to talk more because there are going to be a lot of people wanting to ask you questions more about the Carmelo Anthony case and out of Texas, and just leave it alone. Just leave it alone.
I just have a question myself.
No
Why
question.
is everybody so interested in this one case?
I don't know. You'll find out tomorrow. Ask that question tomorrow during the space. Ask that same question tomorrow during the space. So listen, everyone, please share this video. Please like this video. Everyone that's in the donation, thank you so much. Love you the most. Love you, Catalia. Everybody in the chat, everybody listening, everybody on X, love you guys. And thank you, Judge. And that's it.
Always trying to give them a chance to prepare. Now, anyway.
Say good night. Bye. I'm sorry, what is happening here? Why isn't this thing playing? Can you guys hear me? Oh, can't seek video for storage. Please try again. Really? Let's see. What if I delete this? It's not playing the damn outro.